Since I've already covered Batman Returns and the death and return of Superman, two great beat-em-ups of the 16-bit era, the next logical choice would be to see what Marvel was up to on the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. And we can start by looking at probably the first game people think of, with Spider-Man Maximum Carnage and its sequel Venom Spider-Man Separation Anxiety. Released in 1994 for both the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, Spider-Man Maximum Carnage is a beat-em-up developed by Software Creations and published by Acclaim, and it serves as a tie-in to the Spider-Man Ultimate comic series that started in 1993. It's also pretty well known for its red cartridge. There weren't really that many different colored Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis cartridges at the time, and this one also has some of the absolute best box art of the entire generation. The story follows the entire Maximum Carnage arc that was a run-through of several different Spider-Man comics, including the Spider-Man Unlimited, Web of Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man, and the regular Spider-Man comics. This is actually a pretty typical thing you'll see in comics. One arc takes place over a handful of different series, so this game sort of serves as an actual collection of the Maximum Carnage story. Once you get going, the game features cutscenes straight from the comics, and the 16-bit recreations using the Super Nintendo and Genesis graphics fits the style perfectly, as it is pretty much a complete recreation. Even looking at them side by side, you can see it's pretty much a one-for-one recreation. That's just something you don't really see even in video games today. Story is that Carnage has broken out and is teaming up with a handful of villains, and Spider-Man and Venom have to team up to bring him down. The gameplay is your stand-up beat-em-up, just thrashing any enemy that appears on screen, but there are a few fun mechanics in this one. You can lift up just about any enemy and throw him into a group, which will give you a bit of spacing if you need it. They also have that comic book flair when you hit people with the crunch and thwomp that pops in over their head, really making that comic style come to life. You can even swing around with Spider-Man or shoot web at people, or sort of do a get over here grab and grab enemies from across the stage, which will also help in spacing. There are thankfully a few stage varieties here in this game, with some climbing stages and dedicated boss battle stages scattered throughout to really break up the gameplay. And I will say that the story moves at such a quick pace with a lot of cutscenes in between, so this game will definitely keep you wanting to see what happens next. Throughout the stages, there are your typical power-ups in the shape of hearts. There's little ones that restore a third of your health, and the bigger ones restore it completely. And then you can find extra lives and continues, and these appear often enough, especially if you know where to look, and you will have to sort of look for them. Sometimes you have to climb up on walls or search under objects, and there's even secret rooms that you can find a lot of these power-ups in, so it really makes you want to explore the entire game. But I will say, if I have to nitpick a little bit, there are definitely moments with this game where there will be an obstacle in the foreground where you just can't sort of see around it, like this park in the tree. I mean, you're just getting hit by a boss and you can't even tell where they are. In other stages, it's definitely less obnoxious, as it usually is just lampposts, but it's still sort of annoying nonetheless. In addition to hearts and extra lives, you can also find superhero icons that will summon other superheroes to do a clear screen attack. And some of these will even differ how they attack depending on if you're using Spider-Man or Venom. There is Black Cat, Captain America, Cloak and Dagger, Deathlok, Firestar, Iron Fist, Morbius, and you can even summon Spider-Man or Venom if you're using the other character. There's a good variety of villains in this game with Carnage and Carrion, Demogoblin and Doppelganger and Shriek, and they do appear often enough to make it feel like there's actually something going on in the story, rather than just making it to the end of the stage and fighting the next boss. Both the Super Nintendo and Genesis version look great, but I will say the Sega version feels a little bit faster to me, and that might also make it a little bit easier. I'm not sure if it's just the speed difference or if it is actually easier, because there is no way to change the difficulty in either version. And this is definitely a scenario where the Super Nintendo has the better soundtrack. Even though the Genesis soundtrack itself is okay, I just feel like the Super Nintendo chip just lends itself better to this soundtrack. 1 year after the release of Maximum Carnage, a direct sequel was released in Venom Spider-Man Separation Anxiety, which is basically the same game, except now you can play in multiplayer. The enemy AI also seems to be a bit improved, and you can now choose Venom from the beginning. Just like in Maximum Carnage, Separation Anxiety follows a series of comics. This time, unlike Maximum Carnage, it doesn't follow a comic directly. Rather, it uses inspiration from the events of the Venom's first limited series, Venom Lethal Protector, even though it's titled after the Separation Anxiety series. The story is now scaled back, and instead of using actual comic panels, it's told in simple text boxes, which is definitely a letdown considering just how cool they were in Maximum Carnage. The superhero icons also are a little bit cooler in this game. You'll get Daredevil, Ghost Rider, Hawkeye, and then Captain America will also make a return, and you can still use Spider-Man and Venom depending on whoever you are playing with. Visually, this game looks good for its time, but again, it feels like a step back from Maximum Carnage, as that game has slightly bigger sprites and better looking backgrounds, and I'm just not really sure what happened here. Some people will consider this to be the superior game. I think it's just because of the ability to play in multiplayer, and you can choose Venom to play with from the beginning. And ultimately, Separation Anxiety for me falls into the okay category. It almost feels like this game should have come out before Maximum Carnage, considering just how much better that game looks and has going for it in the story. So if you're looking to play either of these today, both the Genesis and Super Nintendo cartridges are between $35 to $60 for Maximum Carnage and around $20 to $40 for Separation Anxiety. Otherwise, emulation is your way to go, as neither of these have ever really shown up anywhere else. But of course, there are plenty of other great Spider-Man games, like Spider-Man for the PlayStation, N64, and Dreamcast, Spider-Man 2 for the PlayStation 2, GameCube era, and of course, Spider-Man and the Miles Morales sequel for the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5.
If you like this episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button or check out our podcast on iTunes or come hang out on Twitch. We'll see you next time, and as always, thanks for watching.